When it comes to navigating the ins and outs of business, Sonya Shelton has seen it all. From successful startups with brand new ideas to well established Fortune 500 companies. Sonya Shelton founded Executive Leadership Consulting in 2007 from her passion for partnering with leaders and high achievers to create a clear vision and build work environments where employees are fulfilled and completely committed to their organization's success. She has captured her leadership tips and success stories in her #1 Amazon best-selling book, You're an Executive, but Are You a Leader? Having been an executive as well as an international speaker and consultant, Sonya knows how to tap into lesser known hidden practices that drive true leadership. Her philosophy, background, and experience add a strategic, pragmatic, and multidimensional approach to making strong leaders. Sonya serves on the Forbes Coaches Council and is a certified Master Corporate Executive Coach through the Association of Corporate Executive Coaches. Hello, everybody. I am pleased to introduce to you today Sonya Shelton, who is the founder and CEO of Executive Leadership Consulting. Hi, Sonya. Happy to have you on the Healer Hub podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
So, I am really curious about your background. How did you come to being a coach and then founding the Executive Leadership Consulting in 2007?
Yeah, so I actually grew up with entrepreneur parents, and I realized that I learned a lot from them by osmosis. Although growing up, I didn't, I never thought that I would have my own business. That's not the direction that I wanted to go. But they would have conversations at the dinner table in the evening that were the hardest conversations, usually about leadership. So things that they couldn't talk about or didn't want to talk about in the office that were, more confidential, more people oriented. So I got to hear them go through, starting to have these difficult situations with people and didn't realize how much I learned from them until as I started working, I kept moving up into leadership positions. Every time I would get a job, I would move up and end up being in a leadership position because of what I learned from them. And then before I started executive leadership consulting, my last job was the head of internal communications at the Walt Disney Company. And I was there at a time when nobody in my position had experienced what I experienced, and nobody in that position will ever experience it again. We had a member of the Disney family, Roy Disney, leading a shareholder revolt against our CEO at the time, Michael Eisner. So I had this experience of Disney, which is really known for having a great culture, to probably going, almost like going through a divorce, right? Like a company going through a divorce. So it was the worst of times for the company as well, right? So I got to see the polarity between, so a company that's really great at it and then going through this really challenging time where things were not good. And so it made me realize a couple of things. One, the impact on my own leadership as a leader and being in this not great environment and how that changed my behavior based on the environment that I was in. And then also, just looking at the culture of the company and seeing how something like that can be damaging, can put a company under stress, just as if a family was going through a divorce, right? It was the same kind of thing. And really had a lot of empathy for leaders that are going through, challenging times, and how do they handle that personally as a leader, and then how does the company handle it from a culture perspective, and really saw that, we spend most of our time at work, right? So if you have a job, even if you have a business, you spend most of your time at work. So if you're not happy at work, that's going to change everything in your life, right? How you show up at home, how you feel about yourself. And I just saw that if I could help to have people feel fulfilled at work, that could potentially change their lives and how they feel, which can change their family, which can change the ripple effects of that.
Yeah, I love that story, and I love how you brought it to the marriage now of the personal and professional, because it is true, the context forges us into the context that we live, that we work in. The people that we're surrounded by on a daily basis do forge who we show up as in the world. So I understand that you're experiencing what you did inside the Disney company brought you to setting up your consulting leadership company, and this is how you are supporting people.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So to help them first understand their own why. Like, why do they do what they do? How do they bring that why to life as a person? And then what can other people expect from them as a leader? And then we look at uh, from there, what's the team why from your leadership team? What's each person's individual why? And then what's your why as a team? Why do you do what you do as a team? How do you deliver that? And what can the rest of the company expect from you as a leadership team? And then we extend that out another ring into the company purpose. So looking at what is your purpose as a company, and how do you communicate, what's your why, and how do you communicate that both internally and externally? And then we take what we call the red thread. So our model is called red thread leadership. So we take that purpose and we run the red thread through everything that you do as a company, from your vision and your strategy to your processes to your positions, how you're structured, and then ultimately into what we call passion, which is your culture.
Mhm. I love it because as you are talking about it, I can see that you are very passionate about it. And in your book, so you published an Amazon bestseller, and you are talking about the hidden aspects of being a true leader. I'm wondering if you could mention or share that with us.
Yeah, yeah. So the book's called "You're an Executive, but Are You a Leader?" It's a bit provocative, right? So intentionally, because I think that a lot of leaders lean on their title in leadership, right? So sometimes people will say, "Well, what's the difference between an executive and a leader?" There isn't a difference. They can be the same person, but one aspect of leadership is leaning on your title. You're a manager, you're a business owner, and because you have that position of authority, you're coming with this using that to tell people what to do and expecting them to follow you. Whereas being a leader is really about creating that strong purpose and vision, and then encouraging people to follow you, right? So you can't be a leader if people aren't following you. And sometimes people will follow you, I would say compliance, right? So if you're coming at it from a position of fear, right? Or trying to, people are afraid to lose their job, or everything is about the money, you're going to get compliance. You're not going to get passion, right? So, but when you have passion, people are connected to the purpose. They see how their personal why, their personal purpose is connected to the company purpose, and how they can fulfill within themselves through the company purpose. Then they're passionate, and they're going to actually bring more business results than anybody would expect, right? Because they're really bringing their whole selves to it, and they're coming up with new ideas and things that you never would have thought of on your own. But you don't get that if you just have compliance.
Mm. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you saying is the difference between people who are magnetizing and are able to fuel their employees or the people that they are collaborating with their passion and bring them along, invite them into through inspiration, or the other type, which is just relying on the fact that on paper they do have the title of an executive or a manager, and then inflicting more pressure so that people can actually perform or achieve what they need to achieve as goals. I'm wondering if you, in your work, in your experience, there is always this question about leadership being a natural trait. So, are leaders born or are leaders created? And what is it that makes it that some people are rising up to being leaders, and some people maybe have similar traits but never really fulfill their leader within, or never bring it to life?
Yeah, I think that I think I wouldn't say they're born or created. I would say they're honed,
Mm.
and the reason is because, well, first of all, you have to want to be. And there are people who, they're perfectly happy being an individual contributor, being somebody who follows a strong leader. They want to be engaged. They want their purpose and their superpower leveraged, but they don't necessarily want to lead other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of businesses try to push people who are good at their jobs into leadership positions when they don't really want to, and then they're not good leaders because they don't really want to. So I think that the first step is desire, right? So do you want to be a leader? Do you want to lead other people? And then I think everyone has natural leadership capability, even if you don't have a leadership position. If you want people to follow you and you're excited about what you're doing, they will, right? And so a lot of times, like you said, like it's this magnetism effect where when people are excited about what they're doing or they're really passionate about it, people are naturally drawn to find out, what is that about? What are you doing? I want to feel like that, right? Um so I think it is not necessarily a trait that you're born with. It's more about having that desire to lead people, having that passion about what you're doing to help bring them along, and then that big why behind what you're doing to bring them along. And then it's a matter of honing those skills to be able to get there, and that's what we do. We help leaders hone those skills to really connect with their why, so that they know why they're doing what they're doing, and then how do we hone those skills to make them a stronger leader?
Yeah, so that is the question. In my experience, working with people, working with individuals, I see that a lot of people have a very strong why, but sometimes maybe they do not have the skills to transform that why into, or that the skills to seal the gap between their why and the vision that they have. So how do you
Right.
bring people to exploiting their why and translating it into action?
Yeah, I think so. So we call it the why connection, right? Your why, your how, and your what, right? So how do you bring these three things together and integrate them into your personal superpower? And then that's why I say I think everybody has the capability to lead if they want to, is because we all have these superpowers within us. We just might not know what our why connection is to be able to leverage that. And then I even think that there's, some people who are more of a quiet leader, and maybe they are more supportive instead of being directive. And sometimes they think, well, that then I'm not capable of leadership because of my style, right? Because I have this, because I'm quieter, because I want to be more supportive. And they're actually can be some of the most strongest leaders because they come from a place of servant leadership, right? Really wanting other people to be successful and wanting to support them, almost from behind, right? And serving them in their capacity in what they want to do actually can be a much sometimes more powerful version of leadership, right? So it is really looking at understanding who our clients are, what's their why connection, and then we can look at how do we use them, who they authentically are, to bring out that leader in them, and how do they express that in their own way. So there isn't a set way of how to lead people, right? It's how you are an authentic person, you're an individual person, right? And how you lead is going to be different from how I lead, which is going to be different from how somebody else leads, right? So it's really looking at finding who you are, bringing that out into your true leadership style, because that's what people are going to connect with. Ultimately, people connect with leaders that they connect with on a human level, and that they connect with authentically.
Yeah. It does happen also that sometimes in a management position is just losing their own motivation. So how do you help them get back on track and reconnect with their why connection? Or is it reconnecting to their why connection, or is it reconnecting to the vision or to their willingness of being of service for their team?
Yeah, I think it's the combination of the two, right? So the why connection leads into purpose, right? And so having that really strong purpose, but then also having that clear direction, so that vision of where they want to go. And sometimes, that might change, and that's okay. It shouldn't change too often, right? Right? But it might change, external factors, things that are happening. in their industry, in the economy, might change their vision a little bit. But it's really just staying clear about where they want to go. And I find a lot of people don't have that clarity about where they want to go and what they want to create, and therefore, and that makes them lose motivation, right? They're more in a reactive state where they're taking in whatever's happening from the outside and not really driving towards their own vision. So of course you have to adjust based on external factors, but having that clear vision of where you want to go and that clarity in a way that's very tangible. I say we call it a vision because you need to be able to see it. You need to be able to see what that vision's going to be, and staying true to that, and it's making it easier to make decisions, and it really pulls you forward when you know what you want to create. It pulls you forward, and you don't have to generate motivation and try to motivate yourself because it's already there.
Mhm. You're mentioning at the beginning that you are a practitioner of Zen meditation, that you've been practicing Zen meditation. And I'm wondering, in the relationships with the leaders that you are supporting through your consulting business, do you see that there is a tendency for cultivation of certain practices or certain rituals that are supportive for them, for their personal growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I love, in the time when I started ELC, I my master's thesis in my graduate program was actually on the effects of mindfulness on employees going through organizational change. So but it was at a time when mindfulness wasn't really a thing in companies, right? And it thrills me that there are a lot of companies that are bringing meditation practices or supporting them, with free apps and things that they can do to do meditation. Because I think there's more of an openness to organizations recognizing the benefits of meditation when it comes to stress and burnout and things like that. It's really helping them. But I really work with clients on being present, right? So is there when you're talking to a person, are you really with them, or are you, on your computer doing something else, right? While you're having a conversation with somebody, and that can impact your leadership, right? If they really feel seen and heard, if you're fully engaged with them versus trying to multitask or not really paying attention to them, can have a big impact on how they think you feel about them. How you value them, which can make a difference in how they care about what they do, right? So I work with a lot of I think that my Zen practice does sort of flow through everything that I do because it's who I am, right? So I had one of my Zen teachers when I wrote the book. Um, he's also a business owner, and so he had read the book, and we were talking about it, and somebody joined the conversation, and she said, "Oh, did you write a book about Zen?" And we both answered at the same time, and he said yes and I said no. Right. And he said it's all the teachings are all the way through the book because that's just who you are, right? It's part of who you are, and and how you see the world, right? So it does. While I don't necessarily teach clients meditation unless they want to, right? I do, it does show up in how I work with them on their leadership.
Yeah. What do you find most rewarding? And I would like also to mention that you are working as a Forbes coach. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what
Yeah.
are you finding most rewarding in your leadership consulting business, executive leadership consulting business, and as a coach?
Yes, I'm on the Forbes Coaches Council, which means that I am one of the thought leaders that publishes on Forbes and gets to share things, which is really great platform for us. And I think where I find most rewarding when I can see the impact. So my why is I believe success happens when I can impact the success of others, right? When I can have a bigger impact, and when we partner together to have a bigger impact. So at our company, our number one value is partnership, right? So I have a partnership with everybody who works on our team, with even our vendors. I feel like they're partners in our success, and then of course our clients. And when I really feel that partnership, and that where I they're excited about where they're going, they're growing, and I can be part of that team to help them get there is when and have a bigger impact is when I really am energized and feel the most rewarding because if I can impact even in coaching, sometimes we work with organizations on everything in their organization, but sometimes we only have the opportunity to work with one leader. And if I can impact that one leader, that has a ripple effect to their team, that has an impact to how they show up in a company, right? So, and then ultimately can have a bigger impact on the company. So that's what I get excited about.
Yeah, I can feel your excitement
Yeah.
just as you are talking about it. Who did you find, or who do you find inspiring on your own leadership journey?
That's a really good question. And I think that I work with a lot of coaches because I believe in coaching, right? So I get coaching myself, and I have some coaches that I'm working with that inspire me in how they show up, right? So I think it's really about getting back again to authenticity, right? Is their leadership style the same as mine? No, but I really appreciate how authentic they are in their leadership, right? And that they really are who they are, and and those are the leaders that inspire me the most. Is they're just really themselves, and they don't apologize for it, and they care about people.
Yeah. And usually or your nervous system feels very at ease around people who are very much embodied and true to their own self and through their own values, which creates a space for you yourself to bring to the table exactly who you are. And just as you mentioned, to not be apologetic about it.
Right, right. Absolutely.
So when you are are you also coaching one-on-one, or are you coaching a leader and then you are making sure that the leader is implementing inside their team whatever they were coached on?
Yeah, so most of the people that we work with are leaders, right? But we have our team coaches. Anybody who wants coaching on their leadership, we have coaching programs that are one on one, and even for business owners, right? As they're trying to run their business and starting to build their team, helping them from the beginning, set up their leadership for success, and making sure that they're a great leader as they start.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do know that you mentioned that you worked with also startups. So I think it's great for building first a startup that is just starting and it's at the beginning, to build a leadership culture and then grow with that leadership culture. It's really important.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's this famous saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and we say we that's not true. We don't think that's true. Even though we do work in culture, they really need to have breakfast together, right? So having that business strategy and culture connected, so that you're really leveraging your culture to grow your business and making that a priority, and your culture is going to happen whether you focus on it or not. It's either going to happen organically or it can happen intentionally, right? So, kind of like life, right? Like if we life can happen to us, or we can create our own personal vision um, and direct our life, right? It's the same thing with a company. It can be you can be reactive and being pushed around by the waves of change and things that happen, or you can be intentional with a strong purpose and vision and navigate your own way.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to what we were mentioning before, where the context does forge you. So if you have a strong culture, then having a strategy that is implemented within that culture, of course, they're going to be on an equal level. But if your culture is not strong enough, then the strategy is not going to be very powerful either.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there was some research done. I think it was McKinsey did it around when a lot of employees were changing jobs or quitting and things like that, asking why, what were they looking for? And the number one thing that they were looking for was feeling like the company was well led and headed in the right direction. So it wasn't just about leadership, it was also about where is the company going, and do I understand where the company is going, and do I want to be part of that, right? And some people don't. I think sometimes leaders will say, well, I don't want to be so clear. I want to have it more general because I want everyone to feel part of it. Um, and clarity does polarize people, but it's actually a good thing, right? To say, yeah, if they know if they're in or if they're out, that's great, because if they're out, then they can go find something where they can be passionate about that, as opposed to staying in and just sort of, treading water with your company and maybe having mediocre performance. Where if they're all in and they're passionate about what you're doing, they're happy in their jobs, and then they're ultimately going to make your business successful as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I see it a lot in conscious dating, where people are not displaying from the beginning who they are and what they are looking for in a relationship. And I always tell them that it's very important to actually be very clear, because you will filter very easily people. So just like if your culture is strong and you communicate that through everything that you are doing within your company, and then it's going to be very easy for the people who are actually in alignment with your values and your vision to come and jump along. And the people who are not, then yes, they can go and they can find something that is more appropriate. It's not a bad thing. It's just, yeah, everybody finds their plug.
Yeah, yeah, and it's almost hurting, whether it's dating or in the workplace. It's almost hurting the other person by not being clear and allowing them to go find the other thing, right? So, it's wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also a matter of, exactly, so like if you look at it as honoring their time and their energy, and knowing that they are better suited for a different type of culture, for a different type of team, maybe they resonate with a different type of leadership, and just allowing for them to make that conscious choice by being truthful to who you are and being transparent from the start. Yeah, I think it's, well, yeah, we're speaking the same language, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's all about people, right? Which are the same everywhere in every context, right? So whether we're talking about work or relationships, it's still people.
Yeah, and work is based on relationships, just what you were mentioning before. People usually work with people, they don't work with leaders. It's like the
Right.
whole is an institution, and then you have a person for that institution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you find challenging in your work?
I think that the biggest challenge that we have, and it is, and it's how we decide whether or not we're going to work with a client, is resistance to change, right? So we absolutely can help anybody who wants to change their culture, wants to change their leadership skills, their leadership capability. They want to grow. But I think there are a lot of companies out there that don't want to change, right? They're kind of stuck in the status quo and wanting to keep doing things either the way they've always done them or even old ways of doing things. And we don't work well with them, right? So it's a matter of trying to uh, find those companies that are more in alignment with us and what we're trying to do and having an impact and growing, as opposed to fighting companies that don't want to change and are advocating for their way of doing things. And sometimes even leaders will say, like, well, it's their problem. It's the people's problem. It's not my problem. And so they're not very coachable, right? So that's not a good fit for us. And then I think the other challenge is that there's so many companies that we can help, and finding them and making sure that we're able to ourselves grow sustainably.
Hmm. What is the ideal type of company or the ideal type of leader that you enjoy working with and supporting on their journey?
Yeah, I think it's companies that really have a lot of ambition, right? So they might not be clear about their purpose and their vision, or maybe they are, but that they at least have a lot of ambition. They see the potential for themselves individually, or they see the potential for the company. They just need some help in how do they get there, or how do they get clear about where they want to go, and then how do they get there.
Hmm. And what is your vision for yourself for the next 10 years?
you know, um, I'm I guess I'm a little bit of a, unicorn in that I don't ever wanna stop working. I love what I do so much, that I can see continuing to grow the company to ultimately being, in a chairman position where I can still help drive strategy and I can pick and choose the clients I wanna work for. But I can't imagine not doing the work that I do because I really am passionate about it and I love it so much. I can't imagine not doing it. Um, yeah, and just having, a little bit more time freedom, as I grow the company and growing my team to be able to take over some of the things that I do. And then of course having a bigger impact, as I mentioned, right? Really growing the company to help change how companies work, right? I think um, if we could shift, the culture of business to be more purpose driven and looking at and more vision oriented, I think that it would change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. Do you have a dream that is an absolute non-negotiable for you to achieve business-wise or maybe personal?
A dream for me, I think is similar to what I just said, right? To be able to have a lot of time freedom, like to be able to take time off and travel, and um, I love to learn, like to be able to explore the things that I want to explore outside of the company, as well as continuing to grow the company. So almost having um, a half and half, right? So I work part of the time and in the company, and part of the time exploring things that I'm interested in is where I'd really like to get my life. That's my dream. I'm setting it up so that I can do that, right? So hiring the right people that can be able um, to run the company without me, and be able to take it from me, take my vision, and continue to grow it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful dream. You mentioned twice having more freedom time-wise. What kind of hobbies do you have? What are you passionate about doing outside of work?
Yeah, I love travel. Um, I'm also a big Formula One racing fan. So I would love to go, and one of my on my bucket list is to be able to go to all of the races at some point, to all of the race locations at some point.
For one
Maybe not all.
for the same season to travel.
No, not in the same season, not in the same season. That's a little too ambitious. I think that's stressful, but but the but just to be able to check out all the different places, and it's part of why I love it is because it's international and I get to see, like learn about different countries and things like that. And then I also do my own spiritual practices, right? You mentioned I practice in Buddhism. I teach metaphysics and do healings and things like that. And while it is while there is an energetic exchange for it, and it's not, I could see it more as a hobby and something that I do on the side, because and also really love it too.
I'm curious about metaphysics. You did mention that, but I don't really know what it is. Can you tell us a little bit about what teaching metaphysics is?
Yeah, it's kind of looking at the higher spiritual teachings in all the different spiritual traditions, and what do they have in common? How do you use energy? How do you raise your own vibration and consciousness to be able to have greater connection, to access your intuition and direct your life, and really empower people to recognize that they have a choice in how they direct their life, and working with the spiritual realms to be able to co-create, right, with spirit, to not only be in alignment with who you are, as we talked about before, from leadership perspective, but also being able to be supported and directed. And as you get really clear about where you want to go, how can you use spiritual tools and healings to be able to co-create and help you get there?
Mhm. That's really beautiful, and it's quite interesting that it's coming now into the discussion because at the beginning I could see the very rational and very professional driven aspect of you, and now it seems that there is also this foundation of spirituality. And I imagine that it is interwoven with, just as your Buddhist Zen meditation practice is interwoven with your professional life. I imagine that also this spiritual part is also interwoven with your business.
Yes, absolutely. It helps me connect with people and be able to see what's going on behind what they're saying, right? Whether it's an individual or a team or a company, I have the ability to see the energy of what's going on sometimes that they're not talking about, and can kind of dig into what's that really about. as well as, facilitating, when I'm working with companies or teams to be able to help them manage the energy so that they can be the most productive and get the results that they want to get. So a lot of times I'll shift, I'll have a plan of what I'm going to do, but based on what's happening energetically, I'll shift to be able to get them to a better outcome. And some of my clients call it magic. Um, and in a way it is. But yeah, so it definitely comes into play with the work that I do for sure.
Do you name it for people? Do you say what you are doing and the fact that you are feeling into the energetical realm of their business? Or is it more something that is happening for you in the background and then you translate it in business terms for them?
It depends where they are, right? So I'm a firm believer that we meet the clients where they are. So if it's something that I think they're open to or they understand, I'll talk about it. And if it's something that I think they would shut down, I don't. And talk to them about it in their own language. And I think that it really is about that, right? I think ultimately as humans, we do understand those things. We just might call it different things. And I think that's one of the things that over time I've seen that I do well, right? Is looking at how do I take those concepts and simplify them and put them in a language that people can grasp and understand and be able to move them from there into ultimately, their own empowerment and fulfillment.
Yeah, I imagine it is very powerful for somebody who has such a strong business and professional background to come and to invite also this magic aspect that they call magic because they don't have language for it. And I feel that it's such an empowering thing to allow people to also lead with that aspect that is more instinctual or more intuition driven, and to actually teach them to give space for that also in their decision making process.
Yeah, and I think, especially with business owners, that they have started a company, they kind of do that naturally, even if they don't know what it's called. There are a lot of gut, they say gut decisions, right? And executives say that too. Like they know it, they know how to use it because it got them to where they are, but they don't always call it the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Sonia. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Yes, I think that I would say, for your listeners, if you're not feeling like your leadership is there, always start with why. Like look at why do you do what you do? Why explaining to other people why you're doing what you're doing is I think the biggest question that people have that people miss to really starting with the purpose behind what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing is going to help motivate them to follow you and really help you achieve your goals.
Yeah. And you're mentioning also some resources that we can access on your website.
Yes, absolutely. So if people want to reach me, they can. Our website is executiveleader.com. And then I also have a free masterclass that takes you through the entire red thread leadership model. So starting with your purpose, your plan, your process, your positions and passion, taking through and then how companies have implemented that so that you can implement it in your own business. So people who want to look at the masterclass, it's at redthreadleadership.com.
Mhm. Thank you. And we are going to add the links in the notes for the show so they can just, sorry, they can access that via the links. And where can we find or connect with you online?
I'm on most of the social platforms. I would say, the majority of my time on LinkedIn, but I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, right? So you can, whatever social media you like, you can always connect with me there. And on LinkedIn, absolutely, I accept connections. If you mention the podcast, I do a lot of free resources and tips and tricks and things like that. I'm posting all the time.
That's great. So we will just add everything in the notes so that you can connect with Sonia via LinkedIn and any other social network that you find appropriate. Thank you so much, Sonia, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you.
The best way to support the Healer Hub podcast is to review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and share it with your people. Thank you so much. Deeply grateful for your support.